Welcome, confidential listeners, to another dark entry from the archives of the Secrets Inbox. Tonight, we travel to the gray cobblestone streets of Manchester, a city where the rain never seems to wash away the sins of the past. This is the story of Leo, a man who thought he had found a piece of heaven in a woman named Jackie, only to realize that heaven often has a gatekeeper from hell. It is a diary of a love built on whispers, a celebration shattered by a blade, and a promise that blood is the only currency for protection. Titled, "I Will Be Your Shield," the promise that almost cost my life. So, close the door, turn down the lights, and listen closely, because the audience for this truth is only you. Manchester in the winter is a bruised sky and a constant drizzle. I'd been seeing Jackie for 5 months, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I was actually breathing. She arrived in the city like a quiet storm, moving in with her aunt in a terrace house right next to mine in Salford. She'd come from a small village in the Peak District, seeking refuge from a life she wouldn't fully name. She had these almond-shaped eyes that always seemed to be looking at something 100 miles away. She was a single mother to a 4-year-old boy, Polly, a lad who had his mother's quietness, but a nervous edge that made my protective instincts flare up before I even knew his name. I knew she was carrying a heavy rucksack of trauma. She told me her ex-husband was a ghost, a man who didn't care for the boy, and had treated her with a cruelty that left scars deeper than the skin. But whenever I pushed for details, she'd go cold. She'd shut down like a shop front in a riot. I learned to navigate the minefields of her silence, loving the woman she was becoming while ignoring the shadow of the woman she used to be. It wasn't an easy conquest. Jackie had walls made of reinforced steel. I asked her out 5 times, and 5 times she gave me a polite no. She said she had the boy to worry about, that the ink on her past wasn't dry yet. I spent nights staring at the brick wall of her aunt's house, wondering if I was chasing a ghost. Then, after 2 months of small talk over the garden fence, she finally said yes. But there was a catch. "All right, Leo, but Polly comes with us. I don't like leaving him, and I won't have my aunt burdened for the sake of a pint." We went for fish and chips in a little shop near the canal. Even with a 4-year-old between us, the air felt electric. The steam from the vinegar and the sound of the rain against the glass created a sanctuary. That was the night of our first kiss, right outside her aunt's gate. Polly had already run inside, and for 10 seconds, the world didn't have a past. When I kissed her, I felt like I was finally coming home. She said she wasn't ready for a serious relationship, but our hearts had already signed the contract. By the 5th month, we were living in each other's pockets, checking the time, worrying if the other was late, building a domestic fortress that felt impenetrable. We were just 2 souls trying to outrun the clouds, unaware that the storm was already at the door. By the 6th month, the back and forth between our houses felt like a waste of the little time we had. Jackie was working at the local co-op, and Polly had finally settled into a nursery, but I could see the strain on her face every time she had to step over her aunt's threshold. She felt like an intruder in a life that wasn't hers, a tenant in someone else's peace. One evening, while we were sitting in my cramped kitchen, she finally let the mask slip. "Leo, I feel like I'm in the way. My aunt is kind, but I can feel the weight of us in that house. I need a place for me and the lad, just a small flat, somewhere we can breathe. I looked at her and the words came out before I could think. Move in with me, Jackie. Not in this dump. We'll find a place, a fresh start for the three of us. I saw her eyes flash with a brilliant, terrifying hope, but it was quickly replaced by that old, familiar shadow. She asked if I was sure. She asked if I knew what I was taking on. I told her I'd do anything for her. I was so busy being the hero that I didn't notice how she flinched when I mentioned she should go back to her old town to get her furniture. "There's nothing left there for me," she whispered. "Nothing but ghosts." I should have listened to the tremor in her voice, but I was too busy drunk on the idea of being her savior. We found a small terraced house near the ship canal. It was modest, one of those places where you can hear the city's heart beating through the walls, and the garden was shared with 3 other families. It wasn't a palace, but to me it felt like a fortress. My parents helped out, donating an old sofa and a kettle. Even her aunt chipped in with some linens. Moving day was the best day of my life. I remember carrying the last box inside and seeing Jackie standing in the kitchen, the gray Manchester light catching the gold in her hair. For a moment, she looked truly safe. But Jackie was a woman who lived with one eye on the exit. "Leo, if this doesn't work, if things go wrong, we part ways cleanly, yeah? No rows, no drama. I can't go through that again." "Go through what, Jackie? You're talking about him again, aren't you? Your ex?" She didn't answer. She just turned away to unpack a plate, her hands shaking just enough to make the ceramic click against the counter. We agreed on a no-questions-asked policy, a dangerous treaty for a new life. We celebrated 7 months together in that house, acting like a proper family, while the secrets she buried were fermenting under the floorboards. My mom suggested a housewarming lunch to make it official, a grand Sunday roast to welcome the new beginning. I thought it was the perfect idea. I didn't realize I was inviting the devil to dinner. The Sunday of the housewarming arrived with a rare, bright sky, the kind of sun that makes the red bricks of Manchester look like they're glowing. My mom had gone all out, renting extra tables and chairs from the local pub. We set everything up in the back garden under a makeshift canopy I'd rigged up with some heavy industrial tarpaulin. There were about 20 of us, family, cousins, a few mates, the air thick with the smell of roasting beef and the sound of laughter. Jackie looked like a vision. Her aunt had lent her a simple white lace dress, and she'd woven a few sprigs of baby's breath into her hair. She looked more like a bride than a woman moving into a rented terrace. I couldn't keep my eyes off her. I felt this massive, swelling pride in my chest, the kind of pride that makes a man feel invincible. I remember holding a glass of ale, watching her laugh with my sister. I thought, this is it. I've done it. I've built a wall around her that nothing can break. I was so intoxicated by the sight of her in that white dress that I didn't notice the sudden silence that started at the back gate. I didn't see the way the birds suddenly stopped chirping in the hedge. I only saw the blood drain from Jackie's face until she was as white as the lace she was wearing. The gate creaked. A man I'd never seen before walked into the garden. He wasn't dressed for a party. He looked like he'd just stepped out of a damp cellar, his eyes scanning the crowd with a predatory hunger until they locked onto Jackie. The man didn't hesitate. He walked straight through the rows of tables, his boots heavy on the paving stones. He stopped right in front of us, ignoring the confused whispers of my family. He smelled of stale tobacco and the kind of cold, damp earth you only find in the Peak District moors. "So, this is where you've been hiding, Jackie?" Thought you could just vanish, did you? Thought I wouldn't find out where your old auntie was keeping you." The garden went deathly quiet. My father stood up at the end of the table, his hand hovering near a heavy carving knife, but nobody moved. I felt a surge of cold fire in my veins. I stepped between them, my shadow falling over the white lace of Jackie's dress. "I don't know who you are, mate, but you're not invited. Walk back out that gate while you still can." The man laughed, a dry, rattling sound that made my skin crawl. "Who am I? I'm the man she swore till death do us part to, you idiot. I'm her husband. She didn't tell you. She's a runaway. Stole my son and fled in the middle of the night like a thief." The word husband hit me like a physical blow. I looked back at Jackie, hoping for a denial, but she was trembling so hard the flowers were falling from her hair. She wasn't just a divorcee. She was a woman on the run. My domestic fortress hadn't been built on solid ground. It was built on a fault line, and the earth was finally opening up to swallow us both. The air in the garden became thick, like breathing underwater. Vance's eyes weren't just angry, they were empty. He looked at my family, at the bunting I'd hung up, and at the white dress Jackie was wearing, and a twisted sneer crossed his face. "Where's the lad? Where's Paulie? Pack his things, Jackie. You're both coming back to the hills today. I'm not asking." I stepped closer, my chest inches from his. I could see the broken veins in his nose and the madness in his pupils. "She's not going anywhere, and if you even breathe the boy's name again, I'll bury you under these paving stones." That was the spark. Vance didn't go for a punch. He didn't play by the rules of a street scrap. His hand darted to the table, and in one fluid, practiced motion, he snatched up the long, serrated steak knife my mom had set out for the roast. My family scrambled back, chairs screeching against the stone like wounded animals. "Think you're a big man, do you? Let's see how much you love her when your guts are on your shoes. Move out of the way." I didn't back down. I couldn't. The moment that blade caught the sunlight, I realized I wasn't just Leo the delivery driver anymore. I was a barrier, a wall of flesh. I felt my brothers and cousins rising behind me, a wall of Manchester grit, but I knew the first strike would be mine to take. I looked at Jackie, and for a split second, I saw the years of being his punching bag reflected in her terrified eyes. I decided right then that he would have to carve through me to get to her. Jackie finally found her voice, and it wasn't the voice of the quiet girl from the Peak District. It was a scream of pure, unadulterated defiance. "No, I'm done being afraid of you, Vance. I'm done with the bruises and the hiding. You'll never touch me or Polly again. Never." Vance lunged, the knife leading the way. I felt the wind of the blade pass inches from my throat as I grabbed his wrist. We became a knot of straining muscle and desperation in the middle of the garden. My mom was screaming for the police and my brothers were closing in, but in that circle of violence, it was just me and the man who wanted to destroy my world. "You're going back in a box, Jackie. If I can't have you, the earth will." Just as he broke my grip to swing again, the sound of a two-tone siren cut through the chaos. A police van screeched to a halt at the front gate, and 3 officers burst through the garden. Vance froze, the knife still raised, the sunlight glinting off the steel. For a heartbeat, I thought he was going to do it. I thought he was going to bury that blade in me just for the spite of it. But the sight of the uniforms broke him. He dropped the knife. It clattered on the stone, the same stone where we had been laughing only 20 minutes before. as they tackled him to the ground, pinning his face into the dirt. I felt the adrenaline drain out of me, leaving me trembling. I didn't watch them haul him away. I only watched Jackie, who had collapsed into her aunt's arms, her white dress stained with the gray mud of the garden. The police station was a sterile contrast to the chaos of the garden. After the statements were taken and the house was finally silent again, we sat in our kitchen, the one we had just moved into, under the hum of a single yellow light. Jackie was still wearing that white dress, but the lace was torn at the shoulder, a jagged reminder of how close the blade had come. I didn't just leave him, Leo. I escaped. He was working the night shift at the quarry. I waited until I heard his truck pull out, and I threw everything Polly and I owned into 3 bin bags. I didn't even turn the lights off. I just ran. I told my mom where I was going, but I made her swear on her life not to tell a soul. She looked at me, her eyes searching mine for judgment. For the moment, I would realize that loving her meant living in a crosshair. He found out through my mom, Leo. He broke her down. I'm so sorry. I thought if I stayed quiet, the past would just stay in the hills. I didn't want you to see me as a victim. I took her hands in mine. They were ice cold, but steady now. I realized then that the husband he claimed to be died the first time he raised a hand to her. The man who invaded our garden was a ghost, and ghosts only have the power you give them. I didn't see a victim. I saw a woman who had carried a war on her back for 4 years. My love for her didn't change, it just grew teeth. Vance stayed in a cell for a few weeks, but the law in the North can be as thin as the mist. He eventually took a plea and was sent back to the Peak District with a restraining order that felt like a paper shield. But I didn't need the law to tell me my duty. I hired a solicitor to handle the divorce and the custody, properly this time, with every I dotted and T crossed in ink that wouldn't fade. We still live in that house by the canal. There's a small scratch on the paving stones in the garden, right where the knife hit the ground. I never buffed it out. I wanted it there to remind me of the price of our peace. Jackie doesn't wear the white dress anymore, but she walks with her head up. She's not looking over her shoulder at every creak of the gate. People ask me if I'm angry that she kept it from me. I tell them that everyone has a cellar full of secrets they're afraid to open. My Jackie didn't do anything wrong. She survived a monster, and she chose me to be her sanctuary. I told her that night, and I'll tell her every morning until my lungs give out. I will be her shield. I will be the wall between her and the world, even if it costs me every drop of blood I have left. Life isn't about having a perfect past. It's about having someone who's willing to fight for your future. And in this gray, rainy city of ours, I found the only thing worth dying for. And so ends the archive of Leo and Jackie. A story that proves that love isn't just a feeling, it's a barricade. Leo stood his ground when the past came calling with a blade, proving that sometimes the greatest act of romance is simply refusing to move. If this story of courage and protection has moved yet, please leave a like on this video and subscribe to our channel. Help us continue to unbox these hidden truths from the secrets inbox. Click the bell icon to ensure you're there for the next revelation. But before we close the file tonight, I have a question for you, our confidential listeners. Was Jackie right to hide a past to find a new beginning? Or should the truth have been the foundation of their house from day one? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. because in a world full of monsters, the only thing truly bulletproof is a heart that refuses to be afraid. Until next time, stay safe and keep your secrets close. Good night.